Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
Let's do it later.
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes!
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Zach Collins edition of the Blazers Edge podcast. I'm Team Mom, that's Tara Bowen-Biggs, and he is Blazers outsider Danny Marang. We have much to talk about today.
Do we? Do we have much to talk about? Because I'm just sitting here. There's really not a whole lot going on. Things are
Maybe
pretty
you're unfamiliar with this feeling.
Yeah, no, it's pretty standard right now. Pretty standard stuff. Blazers are just going about business, and
things are going well with the Blazers, Dan. It's okay to say it out loud.
No.
In my opinion,
they're going. That's all. Can't jinx anything.
I think that you are underplaying the how much the Blazers have come on since the beginning of this year.
Of course I'm underplaying this. Are you kidding me? I'm not.
Are you happy inside, Dan?
You know, I mean, this.
You're just trying to cover it up.
No, I mean,
by being cool?
legitimately, this has been the most enjoyable run probably in a while. The whole Nurk fever thing last year was good, but the team as a whole wasn't playing nearly as good as they are playing right now. And I think the biggest part of it has been what Damian Lillard's been able to do over the past, really since the beginning of the new year. New year, new Dame, hashtag. But
I would say that Damian is a big part of it, but I do not think that he is the only part of it. I think
There's
Damian
certainly
has been
others.
good all along. It's that the role players are starting to play to their roles.
Yeah, no, imagine that role players are actually playing roles. But I think that the biggest part of that is that Damian has been so good that is, if those guys, they almost have no excuse, if that makes any sense. Like, there's no rhyme or reason for them to not do what they need to be doing. And I think that the biggest part of that has been what Damian Lillard has been able to accomplish. Like, he's legitimately elevated himself into like an MVP category. He's not going to win it, but he should definitely get some consideration as far as like third, fourth place votes, that kind of deal. The all others concerned.
Yes, he has moved himself into that conversation.
And then I think that's what's allowed these other guys to do what they've been able to do. Like, when you have a guy that shows up that well and that much on every single night now, it's kind of hard not to if you're one of those guys like a Harkless or a Zach Collins or he's probably been the most consistent guy not named Ed Davis this year. So yeah, I think he's getting it done. But Pat Connaughton's getting more minutes. Shabazz has kind of come back into form. So those things have been huge, but I think it all starts and ends with Dame. But certainly, I mean, we'll get to it. But there's certainly some other guys that are doing a lot more, particularly last night with what Collins was able to accomplish in the final couple minutes there in the fourth quarter.
Yes, let's recap what has been happening recently. So as I was thinking about what we should talk about today, one of my favorite quotations kept popping into my mind, and it's by Roman general and philosopher Marcus Aurelius. Are you familiar with him?
Shout out, Big Marcus.
Well, he said many things that I have taken to heart, but the one that kept popping up today was things can change in a moment. And what that means to me is don't take anything for granted and enjoy it while it lasts.
I
and
honestly thought you were going to go with hashtag Rip City on the ass. I figured that was a Marcus Aurelius quote.
Well, Marcus Aurelius was a very wise man. And I haven't read all of his works. So I suppose if I dug into them, I may find Rip City on the ass in there somewhere. But that's not the one I was talking about. What I'm trying to get at is, even though you want to keep changing the subject, I want to pause and I want to enjoy where the Blazers are right now. Because it is, as we know, it's a brutal race in the West. I've actually I'm not even looking at the standings anymore. I've just decided there's no reason to look at the standings right now because
it's going to change every 12 hours. Like, I mean,
exactly.
that's what it's going to be. That's the nature of it right now, and it's going to be crazy. Like, if you're a national reporter,
it could change three times in one night.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like literally every there's obviously a lot of hyperbole around like every game matters, dun 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 dun. But no kidding, every game matters right now. And
and every time there's just doesn't wait. I don't want to waste my time looking at the standings.
No, and it's going to be one game here or one team here or there. Like, not every team is going to keep winning. Not every team is going to keep losing. So you're going to have a team that drops 2 of 3 here or wins 4 of 5 there. And those runs are going to be what ultimately decide this. And if you're Portland, you've got to ride this hot stretch as much as you can because even as good as they're playing, they've still got stretches where they're playing against Houston and Golden State. And those are going to be rough games. And even, I mean, the Blazers are playing the Lakers who have won, 5 straight?
5 in a row, yeah.
And listen, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Lonzo Ball's been playing better. I still don't think he's going to be the star that everyone hyped him up to be. But they're still playing better basketball. And if you're Portland, you have to look at them and you have to respect them because they're an NBA team. But you also have to go in there with a mentality that I'm going to tear your throat out and there's nothing you can do about it because you're the damn Lakers.
Right. Well, before we go into the games that are coming up, let's recap what we have just seen out of the Trailblazers. They've won, like you said, the last 5 games. The last 2 were especially important because they were against division conference rivals. On Thursday night, the Blazers defeated the Timberwolves, who were without Jimmy Butler, 108-99. Yeah, but held them under 100, which is always great. Damian Lillard had 35 points. Aminu and Davis both had double-doubles. The Timberwolves were led by Karl Anthony Towns, no big surprise, who had 34. Andrew Wiggins had 21. And significant to the Blazers, Maurice Harkless left the game with a non-contact injury. Despite a very cold start from Damian Lillard, he went 0 for 7 in the first quarter. The Blazers were still able to hold the Timberwolves under 100, which I think is always a great night. And then on Saturday, the Blazers defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder. Carmelo Anthony mysteriously rested for that game. C.J. McCollum was the leading scorer for the Trailblazers with 28 points. There were 18 lead changes, and the Blazers finally got ahead about half of the way through and kept the lead, or halfway through the third and kept the lead. It wasn't an easy finish, and they had contributions from many players like Shabazz, Pat Connaughton, and Ed Davis, of course. But it was rookie Zach Collins who got all the attention. He had a career-high 12 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 blocks. He played meaningful minutes to close out the game. And after the victory, he had his first walk-off interview, which I have to say, he did an excellent job. So where do you want to start?
I mean, let's take a look at these games here real quick. And again, I can't highlight enough, but I'm going to try. Damian Lillard started off 0 for 7 in a game against Minnesota and ended up with 35 points.
Yeah.
That's the most ridiculous thing I think I've seen this season from him. And he's had some absolutely astounding games this year. But to start that bad, and I don't want to talk about the bad too much, but he looked awful. And it wasn't just 0 for 7 like he's just not hitting shots. He's rattling out free throws, barely making some of them. I mean, he missed the technical, and then he had went to the line for 2 and missed the front end of that and then rattled in the second. It was like, good God, what is wrong with him? I talked about it on Twitter. It was like the Monster stole his talent. It looked nothing like Damian Lillard. Like, it almost, like, it was at the point where I figured that, like, is he worried? Like, or is the fact that he's got a kid due soon, is that weighing on his mind or something right now? Because, I mean, it just didn't look like him. And then he comes out, and I think he ended up going like 9 of 12 to close out the game, and just absolutely took over. That is a superstar takeover to do that. And obviously things are different out there probably with Jimmy Butler, because not only has Butler's offense, been spectacular for the Timberwolves, it's his defense. Then you've got to go against a lineup that is just drastically bigger. Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins give you a ton of size, length, and versatility, and that makes it very difficult for a guy like Damian to probably get going. But the Blazers did what they needed to do and took over that game. The astounding thing to me on the other side of that is that Cat's got 34 points, and the last shot he took, I think, was like 7 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. He didn't get another shot.
Who was guarding him for most of that game?
Aminu.
Was that Evan? Oh, it was Aminu.
It was Aminu was on him. He did a good job. Some other guys.
Turner played against him some too.
A little bit, but he sat mostly on Wiggins. Davis closed out the fourth quarter, I believe, in the final 7 minutes on Cat. But Aminu had him for the majority of the game. But Davis did a spectacular job, and he doesn't get enough credit for that stuff. I mean, he gets credit for his defense, but not necessarily for the type of defense that he plays, because Cat's a tough matchup. I mean, he's going to pull you outside. He can put the ball on the floor. He can be physical with you. There's a lot of things that Catman do. Hey. God, I hate myself for that.
For that of all things? Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's the crappy jokes, the ones that don't land. I have a lot of them, I know. But it was a stellar effort across the board. Last night, you've got, and I think we're obviously going to talk about Collins, but a guy who is going under the radar here, who really shouldn't be, considering how much he's struggled recently, is Evan Turner. Evan Turner was 3 of 4 from 3 last night. That means 3 different times last night I yelled at the TV screen, no. Whoa. Yeah, all right. Evan hit the 3. Oh, God. Please don't take any more. And he kept taking them and making them. He got it done. He made Paul George.
Did he have more room last night because they left him out there all on his own?
Oh, God, they left him wide open.
He was so wide open. Right.
There was 2 guys last night that were left open to shoot. Evan Turner and Zach Collins. Evan's left open because of the scouting report, and Zach's left open because nobody knows about him. And yeah, he was 2 of 2 from 3, which was great. He shows the potential to maybe have that shot be something that's there for him. He still has a lot of mechanical stuff to work on. Last night, in general, Zach is the kind of shooter that mechanically there's a solid base to work with. The problem is that his base, his feet, everything basically from the waist down, is what inhibits him from being effective at times. When he just
is that because he doesn't have strength and he just doesn't have enough mass down there because he's young and skinny.
I think that's part of it, but I think the other part of it is he thinks about things, especially on the offensive end. When you put Zach on, this is where Collins is at his best. We were all sitting around watching the game at the Spirit of 77, and everybody was kind of talking about Collins. And the thing I said, that listen, if you want to make Collins effective, you put him in a position where he doesn't have to make a decision. You make it for him. Like the outlet pass to him when he was running the floor to get the dunk late in the game. That's a good spot for him. Giving him the ball and saying, go get a bucket is a stupid decision. Like we've seen numerous times, like posting up Zach Collins is arguably the worst thing that the Blazers could do offensively. And I don't mean that to sound like detrimental to Collins. It's not a good idea. It's
to give him the ball and tell him to go create.
Yeah,
as opposed to
catching
you just
and
ran
shooting.
this play and this ball landed in your hands and now your next thing to do is shoot it.
Yeah. You can be a play ender. That's fine. That's where he can excel. Turner has gotten a couple times where Turner and Collins particularly have worked that lob. Like
Turner has had some really great assists the last couple of games. And I've been saying all along that he was my main candidate for throwing the alley-oops. And he's coming through to me. I'm very proud of him.
It's never going to be Dame. That's just not if you listen to the podcast for long enough, I mean, that's something that we've critiqued Dame now for years. It's not that big of an issue, but I think that play in general, the lob play, is so huge that as far as like what it means for energy and emotion for a team, those plays can be big. And for Collins to be on the other end of that, I think that's something he can do regularly. And I think a guy like Turner, who's constantly looking for it, that's something that the Blazers should be looking to exploit. I want to interrupt and say something about
I want to get back to something you said about Collins because I think I disagree where you said on offense he thinks too much. Okay, when I think about somebody who thinks too much, I think of, bless his heart, we both love him. But, Myers, because you can see everything turning around in his mind as he determines what it is the best thing for him to do in that situation. I do not see that type of hesitation and thinking through things from Collins. He doesn't make every choice right every time by any means, because give the guy a break. He's a rookie.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
When he goes to make a move, he does it without hesitation.
Again, when he goes to make a move, it's because you're making him make the move, because you're putting him in a position where the only thing is to do X. If there's multiple options on the table, he thinks about it and he freezes, and he ultimately, more often than not, makes the wrong decision. And that's part of being a rookie. And a lot of those times they're putting him up in a post-up position. I mean,
I don't feel like he spends a ton of time in those positions. I think it happens maybe a couple of times a game. Do you feel like it happens more than that?
Yeah, it happens a couple times a game.
And that's what happens when you're a rookie and you're learning how to keep up with the speed of the game.
That's not speed of the game. He should not be posting up at all.
And by that you mean do you mean literally
literally at all
the basket?
I'm not talking about catching the ball in the post.
Being on the post with the ball, looking for what he's supposed to do with it.
No, I'm talking about catching the ball in the post. It's not ready in any way, shape, matter, form, or facet. The kid can develop it all he wants, work on it all damn summer. Great. But every time he catches the ball in the post, it's almost a negative every single time. It's just not there. Whether it's catching and looking for a pass, catching and looking for a shot, catching and facing up, it's not good. It bears it out statistically across the board.
I know that you like excellence and everybody should do everything exactly right and perfect every single time. And I definitely believe that there are, last night there was a play where where exactly what you're talking about played out. And it was towards the end of the game. And it was a critical moment when the Blazers were only up, 4 or maybe 6 points, where he had the ball and he made the pass and he passed it straight to the other team. So I get that, but he's not the only one on the team who's ever done that.
No, but that's the thing is and I don't want to make this like a bashing on Collins segment, because he did a lot of great things last night. But I want to see him doing more things and I want to see the Blazers utilize this more, where he's a play ender, not a creator, not a decider. Here's the ball, shoot. Here's the ball, dunk. He may have all those other things, but you're putting in a position to fail. Right. If you're depending on that. I like how you
say that as a play ender, because that could still be an assist if he's caught an assist in the middle, of motion and play, because he's had a few nice little ones where he caught it and he dished it off. But basically that was the end of the play for him to get it to somebody to finish.
Exactly. When you're getting him the ball and saying create, sense. That's just it's more often than not has ended and not just ended that's not a good look. It's ended in terrible fashion. You know what I mean? It's the train wreck fashion where I'm just God, that's nowhere close to being ready. However, when he's running,
is either the end of the world or the most amazing thing you've ever seen. No, come on.
It's not though. The thing is he's successful. Like I said, the run out play where he got the dunk, fantastic. Where the threes that he shot, they were catch and shoot. They weren't here. Let me catch, jab, step, face up, figure something out. They were catch and shoot threes. They're very, very, very simple plays. He's got a nice fundamental skill set. I still can't pinpoint what he's going to do night in, night out as far as an NBA level skill outside of being long and being aggressive defensively. But there's things that you can certainly see that, again, being a play ender, that could be something that he's valuable for. And it's very much the same essence of Ed Davis. Ed Davis, if you give him the ball and tell him to go post up and go to work, you're getting a left-handed baby hook. You know what's coming. So, but Ed Davis, who's catching the ball underneath the rim and drop stepping and dunking, that's play ender Ed Davis. That's fine. And I think Collins is very much in the same vein. And defensively, last night I thought he was spectacular.
Let's talk about his defense.
Okay, let me caveat this just because, again, the reason I want to kind of temper expectations on Collins is, one, he's a rookie. Two, I think people are getting way too excited about what he's doing. Yes, he had a great game last night. It was fantastic. He did a lot of really nice things. It was still 12-5. Mm-hmm. This wasn't like an outwardly like 30-15 night, but he did impact the game in ways that weren't measured in the box score, which are things that I like. But here's the caveat when it comes to Collins last night. Defensively, who did he have to guard?
I don't answer your rhetorical question. I don't answer your questions anymore because I'm not that fast.
But I mean,
if I was
think about that in general.
My impersonation of you is, who was he going to guard?
No, I'm asking
How many people have ever done that?
How many people have ever done what? Huh?
I don't know. I'm just asking random Dan questions.
No, but
don't quiz me.
Is
just
the
tell me.
caveat. I'm trying to get everybody who's listening to think about this real quick. Who did he have to guard last night? Who at that power forward position is a real threat for Portland that you have to worry about with Carmelo out? And that's the kind of the crux of what I think the springboard, if you will, for what allowed him to be so successful last night. For long stretches, he was on Jeremy Grant or Patrick Patterson, who both did have decent nights. One shot 6 of 9, one shot 5 of 8. But he's not on Paul George. He's not on Carmelo Anthony. So he's allowed to be, and this puts him, I think, in the best possible position, the help defender, which I think is the best possible spot for him to be. As a primary defender, he's pretty solid. He makes plenty of rookie mistakes. I'm never going to beat up on a rookie for making defensive mistakes because that's the hardest part to learn being as far as the basketball stuff.
Right, because he's a rookie playing defense. So
yeah, exactly.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, just the fact that you're playing defense is fine by me. And I'm not going to beat up on Zach or anybody otherwise. Just give me the effort. If you're going to make the mistake, make it 110%. Like if you're going to foul somebody, don't give me the knick-knack stuff. Smack the hell out of them. I'm totally cool with that. But if you're looking for that like one shining light or the one thing that I really like about Zach Collins, and I think I've been pretty consistent with this, is that as a help side defender, because he's long and because he moves his feet pretty well, he can come over and alter a lot of shots and make people think about coming inside.
He can cover a lot of ground.
In
that last minute and a half of the game, he was
the help play on
place.
Paul George was spectacular.
He was flying around, and I thought that was impressive. And it did not look like the kind of like undirected flying around. It looked like he was moving with purpose.
Yeah, no, and I think to Collins' credit, and I don't know if this is the scouting report, which I mean it should be, or if the coaches are basically telling him, help inside, help inside, help inside. Because the Thunder were 6 of 27 from 3. Paul George is 0 for 7. Russ is 1 for 5. Like nobody's hitting threes for that team. So if you're going to leave somebody, leave Patrick Patterson, leave Jeremy Grant. We'll deal with it kind of a deal, right? So whatever it was, he did what he needed to do, and he helped inside. He stuffed Paul George twice. He altered Westbrook's shot. And Westbrook in traditional Westbrook fashion took some of the most horrendous shots I've seen. He had I think it was like 3 minutes ago, he took a 3 from a couple feet behind the line when he had Collins isolated on the perimeter. And I was like, that was a really dumb shot.
I just love playing against that. I love it when the Blazers play against that team because
he's going to melt down.
2 minutes of the game, they're inside his head.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I really like Russell Westbrook as a player, and I especially love it when he comes to Portland and they just like pick him apart.
Yeah, you can sit there and like pick the points where he's gonna melt down. You can see it coming. It's like somebody just goes over on the sideline, lights the fuse, and you're like, give it about 3 more possessions. He's gonna do something really stupid, and like clockwork. Here's a 35-footer with 20 seconds on the clock, and you're like, what are you doing, you colossal idiot? Like, you had the switch against a rookie who you could easily take off the dribble, but instead you opted for that shot. Contrast that with 41-year-old Vince Carter when the Blazers played the Kings the other day. When Vince Carter saw Zach Collins on him, he just licked his chops. And he didn't get all athletic and lathered up. He just used his veteran savvy to make him look stupid. A guy like Russell Westbrook with that athleticism, his basketball IQ and his understanding of the game should see Zach Collins on the perimeter and go, I'm going to eat you alive. But he doesn't. because he's Russell Westbrook and he gets in his own head every time he plays Portland. It's the wildest thing I've ever seen.
It's pretty impressive how it happens like clockwork every game. I want to say a couple more things about Collins because I mean it was his best game so far,
Easily.
and so it deserves recognition. And he made his presence known on defense, and what's the thing that for years we've all been wanting on the Trailblazers. It's somebody that we could rely on for defense, and we've got. We've had Aminu. We know Ed Davis can play defense. We know Turner can play defense. We know as a team they've been playing much better. But I don't think that should go unnoticed that, afterwards when he was asked about how his game was, the first thing, when he asked what he was happier about his defense. This kid has a defensive mindset. And he's had a really hard time hitting his shots all year, but they started to fall. And I think that's going to, give him confidence. It's going to move him along. Let's see what else about him. I was going to say something else about him because I think what you're getting at is that, or maybe you're not, but this is what I would say is I think it's great for people to get excited for him for having a great game. And I would caution people about not getting too excited because we don't want it to if he can't follow that up right away, we don't want people to be so let down that it reflects back on him. But I love his attitude. That's the other thing I was going to say. His attitude is he does get mad at himself, but that doesn't make him screw it up. That makes him more focused and better. I mean, when he screwed up on one end, he was able to get back all the way down to the other end. I was just
going to say that. The post-entry pass that he attempted, the collective...
The one that he threw right to the other team.
Yeah, the collective groan, screaming, yelling. If it was Philadelphia... We were at the bar. We were at Spirit of 77. There's probably 250 people in there. It was packed shoulder to shoulder, right? If we were in Philadelphia, they would have thrown batteries at the TV. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was the play was so stupid and so horrendous. It was how are you in the NBA? That was the collective feeling.
Calm down, Dan.
No, I mean,
calm down.
It was
other people have done stupid things too. Zach Collins is not the only person.
In a clutch game to do something that stupid was amazing. But here's the thing. He came back.
That is way too hyperbolic.
Oh, no. It was
just hold on a second.
He threw a pass
it was a bad idea.
to
I thought
player.
It was a bad idea.
No.
He did not execute the right play. He did not execute it the right way. But it is not the worst thing that anyone has ever done.
The only thing that I could think of right there that would have been a worse decision was what the Phoenix Suns did in the closing moments against the Blazers with the 5-second call and not getting the ball inbound. There was no reason.
The Blazers had one of those earlier in the year.
Yeah, but we're talking about colossally boneheaded plays. That was really bad. But here's the thing.
It was a rookie mistake.
Here's the thing. Let me get to it. As stupid as that was, he comes back on the other end and makes a massively huge defensive play. To vacillate between those two things, to go from just enormously bad decision-making, and not only decision-making, but to think that was the play to make right there. Because posting up C.J. McCollum is never the right idea. I don't understand why that thought went into his head. So there was a couple things in there where it just had me stumped. But instead of freaking out about it, he gets pissed off and gets back on defense and makes a tremendous play. And that kind of goes to what you're talking about with the mentality and how he's angry at himself, but he's angered himself in a way that I'm going to make the right play. It's
productive.
It's the complete opposite of Westbrook, where Westbrook makes something a really stupid play, and instead of, compensating for it or making up for it, he doubles down on stupidity. Mm-hmm. And you can see it happen against Portland specifically. For Collins, when he makes those really bad mistakes, and he doesn't make a ton of them, to me, that may have been the biggest mistake I've seen him make this season. He's made some other where
I know
you've
been keeping track.
I have. And he's had some where I remember one play, because I remember writing it down because it blew me away, where he completely missed the pass. Like, he's looking at the ball, and it was kind of like, sports bloopers where the ball just like went in right between his hands and like hit him in the chest, and he had like giant oven mitts on and couldn't grab the ball. And those kind of things happen. It's rookie stuff. But to make the correction, to make the right play, I think that speaks more for him in the positive than making that stupid of a mistake, if that makes sense.
Yes, it was very generous of you to say, Dan. No, but to me, the takeaway from that game was it was really great to get a glimpse of what Collins could be or can be once he's fully developed. I am under no illusion that now that he's had one nice game that he's done. I am under no illusions that we're going to get, 12-5. I'm under no illusions that 12-5 is like what we would be happy with as a ceiling for him in the next 3 years. But what I would say is that there were a lot of positive things in a game that was meaningful, in minutes that were meaneful, that, there's a lot of things that the Blazers can look forward to.
Yes.
And when we've been talking about the only way the Blazers can change right now, because we've talked to, ad nauseum about the free agency situation and about the draft situation. We've talked about all of that. Like, to the point that there's nothing else to say about it anymore. So
internal development, that's the only choice.
Internal development.
There it is.
That leaves us there. And you know what? If things could develop, we don't know if it is, but what's wrong with giving people hope and having hope that, at least for the end of the season, that we can make a decent run in the playoffs? In December, we were wondering if we were even some people were wondering if we were even going to make it. So I think it was a very positive thing, and I was really happy to see him, and I was really happy to see him be very mature about it, and for everybody to be really happy for him about it. And I look forward to hopefully, some more glimpses of this before the end of the year and maybe even into the playoffs. We'll see how things go.
Yeah,
but
I don't think the expectations are going to be any different for him. And I think that's the way people need to treat it.
Yeah, and I think we all just, I think it's good to remind ourselves of that. But it's also good to celebrate when things go well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, he played spectacularly.
Not dwell on, typical rookie mistakes. Like, he's like somehow more guilty of any other rookie who's fallen off. There's plenty of rookies out there who started off amazing who are like, where are they now? It's like it's a flux. It's, they're rookies. You never know you don't really know what you're going to get all the time. So, but I do have a question about something I've noticed over, especially last game. There were some lineups up there where I was like, what is going on? I've not seen this lineup yet this year. And in particular, I'm talking about like the parade of big men. And I don't know if it was because they were playing against Steven Adams, and they thought that would be one way that they could, frustrate him and try to keep him on his toes. But we saw Myers last night, a couple of short, effective shifts. Mm-hmm. We saw, because of no Mo, we saw more Shabazz and we saw more Connaughton.
Yep.
But we had Nurkic and Collins out there together. We had Collins out there with Myers. Most importantly, we had Collins out there with no Ed Davis. So one thing, I was kind of surprised by that, because I thought with this final stretch, with every one of these games being so massively important, that like Terry Stotts would have like shored up his rotation. But suddenly we were seeing new things last night. What's up with that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love Professor Stotts. He's always tinkering. There's plenty of new school in him, but there's some old school too. And I think that's always been true with Stotts. And when the team was struggling and he was trying to find something to stick, people were like, why don't you stick with something? Like, rah, 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 which was ignorant because the team was playing like crap.
Right. And then he found something that worked, and now he's messing around with it again?
Well, he had no Harkless, so he had to tinker. Mm-hmm. Harkless has been a spark plug recently, so why not try something? And Oklahoma City presents some unique opportunities.
Okay.
You have Russell Westbrook, who wants to get to the rim endlessly. For all the things that people want to say about Myers Leonard, what is he still at his core? He's still 7'1", 270 pounds. What is it very
nice shifts?
What is it very hard to do over a guy that big? Finish inside.
Shoot. Okay.
So
there's another one of those questions. I didn't know where you wanted to go with it.
No, at bare minimum, he's very difficult to score on inside. And at bare minimum, he's going to wrestle with Steven Adams. I mean, if Steven Adams wants to play physical. Myers Leonard wants to be physical. So let them both go in there and wrestle. That's fine. That's great. Collins got extended minutes at the 4 and even at the 5 at some points. And that's because of what the Thunder wanted to do. They are very, very, very much built around Russell Westbrook. And everything Russell Westbrook wants to do is to get downhill. Zach Collins is uniquely able, as far as this roster is concerned, to be able to be out on the perimeter and contest a shooter out there in the corner and close in and help inside. I mean, it looked like he had specific instructions to leave shooters. Help inside, help inside. Russell Westbrook is trying to win this by himself. Screw everybody else. Deal with Westbrook and Paul George at the rim. If they want to, if Russell Westbrook wants to shoot, let him shoot. If Paul George wants to shoot, don't. Stay on him. And I think those were the key areas as far as how they looked defensively last night. So, I mean, there was just a lot going on in that particular matchup that allowed for other guys to be successful. Pat Connaughton didn't have the biggest game, but I think he was huge as far as energy plays. He missed all 3 of his threes, and the thing was, like, all 3 of the threes were the right shot. They looked good, and they were in rhythm in the offense. And even if you're missing those shots, if you're taking those shots, everybody's just kind of like picking each other up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They want to get behind that.
So we talked about how Damian Lillard has been so spectacular as of late, but I think the big difference between or the big reason behind why they're doing well right now is because these role players have found their roles. They've figured out what it is they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of the role players and how they've been playing. I'm really conflicted about Mo, about whether or not he's found his groove.
I don't think he'll ever find his groove because his groove only lasts for 4 or 5 games.
So do you think that's it? He just isn't. He's not someone who can sustain it.
No,
whether or not he's a starter or off the bench.
Yeah.
Because it was interesting because like when you look at his numbers as a starter, like if you look at his stats, his numbers across the board are pretty much better as a starter, but his plus minus is not.
Well, I mean, his numbers in general just aren't good. I mean, they're very mediocre, to say the least. However, that's weighted much more heavily on the beginning of the season when he was a starter. And this isn't hyperbole by any means. His numbers as a starter before he got benched were probably the worst of any starter in the NBA. I mean, it was bad. But what you can't measure are the energy and hustle stats. And people are trying to, and there are ways that are obviously private, but the publicly available data doesn't really capture that. And we've seen over the past couple of weeks, as he's gotten more time, that energy, effort, and hustle be there. And we can all see it. We can feel it. The team feeds off of it. The Blazers have been much more productive in the open court and the fast break offense particularly because of Harkless. Mm-hmm. So the Blazers, when they get that, that is another element to their team that they just don't have without him. They just don't have a stable of 6'8" guys who run the floor. Mo Harkless is basically it. The next guy on that list is Pat Connaughton, and he's a 6'5" guy.
6'5".
Yeah, there's a difference between finishing in traffic. And Patty C had one of the nicest finishes of the year last night. I got to highlight that one. He had the floating finger roll off the top of the glass in traffic.
Oh, yes.
That was absolutely beautiful. And again, those were the energy plays that I think that Pat Connaughton was making last night. He came in off of one of those threes off the wing. He felt it come off. And normally, you know the old adage of follow your shot. No, you don't follow your shot. Never follow your shot. Unless you're Pat Connaughton or Damian Lillard. Pat Connaughton went in and took Russell Westbrook's rebound away from him, which was mwah. Because the Thunder like to let Westbrook rebound the ball to get his triple doubles. That's a real thing, folks.
And Pat Connaughton said nope.
He said nope, took the cookies and went up with it, and it was just poetry in motion. And any trolling of Russell Westbrook, I highly endorse. But I think letting Pat Connaughton make those plays is purely because he's on the floor. Like every time Pat is on, I mean, he had the The play
He's had
where
a difficult shooting slump.
he is, but I think he finds other ways. There was a play where CJ McCollum stayed down on a post-up move and forced the kick out, and Pat saw basically what was coming, that CJ was going to deny what the offensive player wanted to do, and that the kick out was coming. He shot the gap and stole the ball and took off on the fast break. It was absolutely beautiful, heady basketball, and that's the kind of thing you can do when you're comfortable and the energy is flowing. Everybody's kind of feeding off each other, and you know what your teammates are going to do, and that's the role player trickle down effect, if you will. I think that you get from the confidence of knowing what Damian Lillard's going to give you night in, night out. Of course, I say that as he had his worst game in weeks last night. Still finished with 20 and 7, but
it looks to me like they have. They're playing the playbook. Like there's certain plays that have become really effective, and I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to do them, because I figure someone's going to be able to figure them out. But there's one that I've been seeing a lot lately. Isaiah, who's one of the writers for Blazers Edge, and I were talking about it Blazers Edge night. The one where CJ makes a beautiful run all the way around the arc, and whoever's passing it to him passes it to space rather than passing it to him, and it always looks like they're gonna catch it. And sometimes I think Pat Connaughton catch it too. But it's this beautiful play that if I was the other team, I'd be like, yeah, we got to shut that one down because it's a real, because of how nice it is. It really gets everybody going when they make it, especially because he's like running and catching into space and shooting all at the same time. And when it goes in, that really gives everybody life. So it surprises me that other teams are letting them get away with it. But I feel like they're comfortable with the playbook now. They're comfortable with the plays that they're running. And maybe it's just my eye is seeing them better. But, I mean, do you feel like they're running plays now, or does it look like to you like they're in flow? I mean, I think when Damian is the one who's got the ball in his hands, it's flow. But when the role players or the other people who aren't Damian Lillard have the ball, that they're the ones who are going back to the playbook. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think there's an element of both to that. I think Shabazz Napier and C.J. McCollum obviously are going to be guys that can dictate and play within the playbook. I mean, obviously so does Damian Lillard, but the amount of gravity that Damian Lillard has generated over the last couple of months has been staggering. The amount of defense that's dedicated to stopping him and to still see him be successful in those opportunities, with or without the play, whether it's the flow offense and just making the reads, or if there's an actual play going off. Because a lot of what the Blazers do, yes, they have a playbook, but they also don't have, a lot of it's off the read and react, the flow offense. So how they generate their offense is a lot of natural feel. And up until really a couple months ago, there were points where Jusuf Nurkic still didn't know all the plays and all the reads. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and as far as how they react to that stuff. So the more they play with each other, the more comfortably they get, the more natural those reactions become, the quicker that they happen, then the Blazers offense starts to get rolling. And I think a lot of that has been dictated by what Damian's been able to do, as well as guys stepping up and knocking down shots, particularly Damian. I think he's picked up the slack that allowed the role players who were struggling, because remember, just a couple weeks ago, Shabazz Napier was struggling big time. Pat has struggled big time. But on the other end of that, Jusuf Nurkic has upped his production a ton as far as efficiency. I mean, he was shooting in the low 40s there for a while, and he's back over the last couple weeks. He's been around 54, 55%. So
he's been dunking
a ton over the. I was actually. I'm going to get back to writing again, and one of the things I was going to look at were how successful the Blazers were as far as their efficiency in the paint in games where Nurkic dunked.
When he dunks.
Because it's been a rare occurrence until the last couple of games where he's had, I want to say, he's averaged probably 2.5 dunks a night.
I swear I can hear the neighbors cheering too. It's just so
screaming at the TV. For the love of God, dunk the ball.
The city is like, dunk, he dunked. Yeah, no, but I mean, he's very effective. Ooh, I have a question. I have a question for you. Okay, is a hammer, is that a one-handed dunk, or can that be a two-handed dunk? Because I always thought that when someone hammers it, when it's a hammer, it's a one-handed dunk. It looks like a hammer.
The typical vernacular for hammer should be a one-handed dunk. I have seen people call it a two-handed dunk that they throw down. It's hammer time, throwing it down. But no, to me and everybody else I've ever played with, talked to.
Okay, a certain announcer a couple of times last night called the two-handed dunks a hammer, and I was appreciating the fact that we were all excited because
it's a throwdown. Two-hand is a throwdown.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't losing it there. So speaking of Nurkic, the last few games, Nurkic has played less than 20 minutes, and the last time that he played less than 20 minutes was that terrible game against the Jazz. However, I feel like these weren't like, he's playing less than 20 minutes because he's being punished.
Yeah.
I felt like there's just sort of been like this understanding reached. I felt because he still was able to come back in and be effective. He didn't come back in and pout. He came back in and did what he needed to do. What do you think? Do you think that's a good thing to have Nurkic? I mean, or what do you have to say about that? I mean,
Nurkic recently, and James Hollis, Snotty Drippin, put out a tweet about how effective Nurkic has been recently. In Portland's last 9 games, they're 8-1, right? Well, in 24 minutes a night, Nurkic is averaging 13 and 9 with shooting 52% from the field, and he's a plus 7.3 overall, or average, I should say. So in the 24 minutes a night, you're getting, think about that, 13 and 9. You're like, oh, that's pretty good. In 24 minutes, that's astounding production. So when he's on the floor, he's giving you something.
How many minutes did it take Zach Collins to get his 12?
Was it?
Let me look.
It was 28.
Let me look.
Almost 29. Yeah. And he was 5 of 6 from the floor. So, again, astounding production in 13 and 9, 4 more rebounds and another point in 5 less minutes. If you're getting that every night, if Zach Collins gives you 12 and 5 in 24 minutes a night, he would move himself, as well as playing defense like he did last night, he'd move himself up into one of the best bench bigs in the league. So I think we can go ahead and temper those expectations.
So anyway, back to Nurkic.
But what Nurk has been able to do in those stretches on the floor is get as much done as humanly possible. And I think I don't know if I want to call it an arrangement, so to speak, but the Blazers appear to, over the last couple of weeks, be giving Jusuf Nurkic the LaMarcus Aldridge treatment. What have the Blazers done to start pretty much every game over the last couple of weeks?
I know the answer to this question.
Which one is it?
They start off by running a play for Nurkic
yes,
so that he can get the first shot.
And then they've gone to it, and even if it's been the design, Nurkic hasn't taken it every single time. He's taken it, I think, probably more often than not. But I think it's to kind of get him going and knowing that he's going to get 24 to 20 or 20 to 26 minutes, that when he's out there, let's use him. Let's get the most out of him. Let's not have him be out there just running up and down the floor. And I think that's a really, really effective measure that a lot more teams in the NBA could use if they have traditional centers on their team. Like if you have a traditional center, use him. Especially if you have a mismatch.
Play him like the guy who's the center of the attention. Like run it through him because you have a traditional center out there. So in the minutes that he's there, have him
exploit
play center.
The mismatch. Yeah, I mean, Jusuf Nurkic.
Have him play tall man who can dunk.
Exactly. I mean, Jusuf Nurkic as a traditional center, how many guys in the league can really guard him when he goes to work on the roll? There just aren't that many people in the league that are big enough to handle him. Even the slim down Nurkic. So utilize that. And I think that's been a very, very effective strategy for Portland. In that same stretch of time, Ed Davis has been steady Eddie. He comes in, does his thing, checks out. He doesn't really blow up the stat sheet, but he's getting it done.
Yeah, the second part of that James Hollis Snotty Drippin tweet was about
the other role
Ed
players.
Davis. Right, and how, it looks like their production is quite a bit less than Nurkic's. But I would still argue with Ed Davis that even though his stats are not
the impact
really
is much larger than just the stats.
At least over this last stretch, Nurkic was, what did you say, 13, and Ed Davis is averaging, 5.9 points. He still has 9 rebounds. But I would argue that in situations where other people aren't hitting their shots, Ed Davis keeps the team he keeps the team afloat. I don't know that Nurkic does that so much because Nurkic goes as everybody else goes. So
I think he's turned the corner defensively, at least. Offense is still up in the air, but defensively, I think he sets the tone on the defensive side of the floor. He is, I think, gotten to that point now where he realizes that if he doesn't do it at that end, there's guys that are willing to.
So there's 3 centers on the Trailblazers right now playing effective defense. Really?
I'm not going to call
Nurkic
Collins a
Davis
center
and
yet.
Collins.
I'm not going to call Collins a center yet. He's matchup center. He's a matchup
He's a big.
center. Yeah, okay, big
So
I can go with. Yeah. And then that's a luxury to have.
And then if you
throw Aminu into that too.
Aminu into there.
I mean, really,
then no wonder the Blazers are playing pretty good defense this year.
Exactly. Here's the other thing, and I had somebody, again, we were talking about Lillard as a top 10 player, and people hopping in on Twitter saying Klay Thompson's better, and it's like, no, he's not. Stop. And had somebody who was a fan of another team hopped in, and he's like, hey, I just want to know, like, how much is how much is Damian Lillard giving away defensively this year? And I would argue that he's not giving anything away. I don't think he's a true positive or a plus defender, but I don't think he's a negative anymore. I think he's just it's a push, which is all.
Right.
I think
You're not going to put him out to play defense.
Yeah,
but
no,
he's fine.
But I think if you put him on an island against a player 1-on-1, he's the kind of competitor where you're at least anticipating that he's going to come out on top in the long run. And I think that's all anybody ever asked.
Or he's going to do something smart by, like, if they're going to get past him, he's going to channel him into somebody else or do something smart about it.
And I think that's all anybody's ever asked of Damian Lillard. And if that's your quote-unquote worst defender now, it's not surprising that the Blazers are a better defensive team. And I think these last couple of games have really gone to show that. And this is, I think, what everybody expected this season was give the effort on that end and then find a way to continue doing running your offense. And that defense is. Think about this over the last couple of games. How many times have you felt like Portland was ever out of the game when they were down?
I didn't. I had these
almost
like even when they were down. Right.
And that's the defensive intensity, possession in, possession out. They aren't taking, and this is something that we talked about a couple months ago. Remember when we talked about how knowing when to take a possession off and not having everybody kind of do it at the same time because it leads to those big runs? Asking every NBA player to play every single possession defensively at 100% is not a reality that exists. Guys take plays off. You get tired. It happens. It's about knowing when and where and how to do that and not completely checking out for possessions at a time. And I think the Blazers have found that sweet spot of knowing when to really compete and when you really need to lock it in. And that's translated into success on both ends. And that's what I think has led to how well Portland has played over the past few weeks.
I think one of the things that we've seen out of them recently, at least like since the beginning of the year, is like at the beginning of the season they proved that they could play defense. They've gone back to playing offense, and then they can turn on the defense when they need to. It's not the central foundation. Like, they're not known as a defensive team right now, but when they need to play it, they can play it. And I think that's something that they haven't had in the last couple of years, which kind of brings me to like where I wanted to sort of wrap up tonight. Damian Lillard said that he thinks that this team is playing the best that they have in the last couple of years. Do you think that's true? And if so, how much better do you think that they can get?
It's kind of fun to have this discussion because it means the team's improved, and also it kind of lends a theory to like the best possible existence. First of all, yes, I think this is the best that they've played post LaMarcus, and I think it's clear. I think they're playing better basketball right now than they did during Nurkic fever. I think that was what happened last year was kind of lightning in a bottle, where this is more of a.
They developed into this.
Yes,
like they
and I think this is more the new reality.
Applying what they've learned.
And it's a little scary to say that because that just means it's it's
it's
that much further of a
I
fall.
was talking over it. Go ahead. I'm giving you fully the mic to say what you just said.
No, I think that this is more of the new reality for this team. Because I like to be negative about things, I don't think it can go a whole lot higher. I think there's certainly room for growth among other guys. But again, having all 10 guys in your rotation that are all firing on all cylinders at all times almost never happens. There's always somebody who's playing a little bit off or not at 100%. So to see how
Who's
successful...
got the biggest...
Who's got the most room to grow? Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah. Who's got the biggest potential for another gear?
I think
like we've been talking
obviously
about.
The easy answer is the rookie in Collins, but I think Nurkic presents the most likely candidate because I think he has more inclination and more right to the ball, if that makes sense. Like as far as the pecking order goes. Nurkic,
and he's also got more opportunity.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Multiple things that he can do.
Exactly, and it's not that shortchange Collins. I think he can do some things certainly, but I think he's still a long ways off as far as being that guy. Now in 2-3 years, maybe he is, and then that's something that Portland's going to be able to draw from. But and here's again credit to Damian Lillard. I wasn't sure if he had that one more gear. Like we talked about, like how much more can he? And he found one more gear. That's nuts to me. I think CJ is what CJ is at this point in time, which is a phenomenal scorer, a solid playmaker, and a near two-way guard. Like he's almost there to where he night in night out defensively. He's a good dude on that end of the floor too. And I think that's as good as you're going to get basically from those two, which is 55 to 60 a night, which is nuts. Do you think that Aminu has another gear? Because I don't. I think this guy's a damn good player, and this is basically what you're hoping for from him. 40%, spectacular rebounder for his position, premier defender, and just being a reliable guy. I mean, I know Aminu's your beautiful butterfly, but do you think there's a full gear in him left?
No, I mean, I think that, maybe he could be more reliable game to game with his shooting. But I mean, I think he is what he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Which is a damn good
what
player.
he is. And both of those things are wonderful.
Yeah.
But I think that they are what they are. And I think that they're close to maximizing the value of
who they are and what they do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when everybody is playing to their highest potential, I think they're a really good team. I mean, I don't think they're, the top echelon, but I think they're a team that can give just about anybody a run for their money if they're all firing on all cylinders, which, is exciting for a team that going into the year, we were also wringing our hands over, how they didn't get any better. And, even recently the trade deadline, they didn't get any better. I think they have done a lot with internal development, and it's nice to see it all coming together. And I think Terry Stotts must be the most patient person in the entire world. He's been I mean, how do you drown out the noise that he must hear all the time everywhere he goes from people telling him what he should be doing with his team? And, he's just gone about trying to maximize everything with everybody. Let's see, I think Nurkic probably has the most room for, obviously, Collins too, but like you said,
it's an opportunity cost kind of a deal that you have to.
It's possible that Maurice Harkless might, I think, in the right circumstances.
I think the opportunity is there, but whether or not he really wants it, I mean, it's rare for a guy at his age to find that extra gear if he hasn't shown it in 4 years.
And I think Shabazz, if he had the opportunity to play, but I don't know how much opportunity he's going to get to play before here. Exactly. Yeah, I would love so much to keep him. I think if the Blazers could keep him for next year, he would show us another gear.
Yep, I wouldn't argue that
one bit. but I just don't think that that's very possible.
Opportunity is really the biggest question here. I think there are guys that certainly are showing capability, but the opportunity to be successful, and it's strange when you consider Portland, because you look at the roster and you say outside of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, there's plenty of opportunity. But in the same token, the guys that they have still have question marks, so that the opportunities are limited because guys haven't shown that they can deliver on it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But I think as far
I'll
as
just say that I'm fine that we didn't get Melo.
I think it would have been fun for a lot of other reasons, but
I don't know. I just like watching this team develop. You know, it is what it is, and they're playing well. They're even if they could just play even a little bit outside of themselves, I think we could have a really exciting run here, and it's just nice to see it. It's nice to see it coming to fruition.
Yeah, and I think the thing here is that as fun as this is, as great as this is, what does it mean in the long run? And I saw a lot of comments on the last couple of articles on Blazers Edge. There's been a lot of people like, why can't you just enjoy this? Why can't you enjoy this? I think there's a lot of people here that are certainly like me and are enjoying the play right now, but in the back of their head, you're wondering, what's it all mean? What's it worth in the long run? And, you know, how much is this going to factor into the Blazers a year from now, 2 years from now? And I think those are both valid positions. I would just say that, yeah, I enjoy this. Look forward to what's possible and what's coming, but also realize that there are still a lot of question marks. And that's both promising and terrifying at the same time for a Blazers fan.
Right.
And I think that just because they're playing better right now doesn't validate or invalidate questions or concerns that were there a couple months ago. They're just finally, I think, getting to the point where a lot of people expected them to be. And a lot of that has also been around some things that they can't control. And at least for me, I'm glad to see that this team is finally taking advantage of positions that they are in that they can't control, such as injuries to other players on other teams, and taking advantage of those. There was not a more frustrating point in this season than watching this team get waxed by opponents missing their best players repeatedly.
All right. I'm just glad to see players playing their best and playing well. I mean, that the thing that was hardest for me to watch earlier on was when players were out there and not playing as well as you know that they can play. Watching Nurkic out there, you know, giving those floppy little tosses up to the thing, you know, watching Harkless not engaged in what he was doing, watching Harkless or watching Shabazz and Connaughton struggle. I just like watching players playing up to their potential and, you know, being everything that we know that they can be, and like conveniently doing it at the same time and at the right time of year.
And that's the thing. That's what I think is really enjoyable about this whole process right now.
We said you have to come out. We were also upset because they didn't come out, you know, out the gate and build up this big giant lead. But I'm pretty happy that right now, if they're catching fire, it's going to be right now rather than have them come out, you know, really on, you know, fantastic and then have everybody figure you out by Christmas.
Always the positive.
That's right, Dan. That is right. So I think we should end it. I think we should end it on that note.
All right, fine.
So people can find me at TCBBiggs on Twitter. You can also write us emails. Y'all got to write us some emails at blazersedgepod@gmail.com. We want to know what's on your mind and give us your, you know, complicated scenarios that we can talk about and hash over, because we got this. What do we have? The playoffs coming up. Hopefully, knock on wood.
Get the playoff.
I wonder when the earliest that could all be decided is.
I wonder magic numbers. No, Matt Moore, Hardwood Pro sees them. He's been running the magic numbers, and it's still
okay. Well, we'll go into that next week.
Tight.
Yeah, so it still might be April 6th, and we might still be wringing our hands wondering if the Blazers are in.
Oh, the last 3 games are going to be
I'm not even
deciders.
looking at the standings.
No, the last 3 games are going to be seeding deciders. I'm very confident in that fact.
Yeah. But I mean, like, just in the playoff deciders.
Oh, yeah.
That's still going to be way up. Anyway, where can people find you, Dan?
You can find me on Twitter at DMarang, on Instagram it's the same, pretty much everywhere else. Obviously on non-game nights during the season, during the week, Monday through Friday. You can find me on NBC Sports Northwest at 7 p.m. with Shane Brennan and Joe Simons on Blazers Outsiders. And yeah, you can find me also back to writing a few things here in the next couple weeks. So go ahead and prepare your brains for more stat overload and videos and clips and all that good stuff. So that'll be fun.
I think they better let me edit these.
You want no part of this, trust me. There's a reason why Dave edits all my stuff.
All right. Thanks for listening.
See ya.